In 1996, Rwanda invaded the Democratic Republic of Congo, seeking those who had escaped the 1994 genocide. The invasion touched off what many now refer to as Africa's World War. The Congolese who were swept up in 16 years of violence would suffer war crimes and crimes against humanity, to include mass rape, disappearances, and unlawful killings. More than 2.4 million Congolese would be internally displaced, and 460,000 would seek permanent asylum in other countries. In 2007, under the auspices of Emmaus United Methodist Church in Albany, New York, the Refugee and Immigrant Support Services of Emmaus was founded to welcome these refugees and to provide what assistance they could in making America their new home. Situated in the inner suburbs of the Pine Hills district, the RISSE facility is in close proximity to the trappings of middle-class America, with pedestrian shopping and dining district nearby, where affluent residents mingle with college students from the nearby University of Albany and the College of St. Rose. The mission of RISE is to offer a true welcome to the stranger, to make them a part of the fabric of the community. That almost always starts with teaching English as a second language, but there is more, to include assistance with finding employment, housing, correspondence with government agencies, after-school childcare. The work is defined as much by individual needs as it is by formal programs. Though RISE was originally founded to meet the needs of the Congolese refugees, the organization has served refugees and other immigrants from many other countries over the years. Like many similar small nonprofits, RISE operates within the limits of a lean budget. With only 2 full-time staff and so many clients requiring hands-on assistance, the organization relies heavily on volunteers. These volunteers come from a network of local churches, from the community, and from 2 colleges that are within walking distance. Earlier this year, the organization suffered a devastating fire that forced it to leave its building. Insurance covered much of the cost of rebuilding, but the organization is reaching out to the community for assistance with everything in the buildings that was lost in the fire: office furniture and equipment, desks, tables, and chairs, virtually everything that is required to reopen its doors in the next 60 to 90 days when reconstruction is scheduled to be complete. The organization currently has no formal communications plan, though the administrators have demonstrated good instincts with development of a website, a foothold in social media, and some printed collateral. Its execution has been inconsistent. With staff resources as limited as they are, communications efforts are only conducted in the found time that may or may not happen in any given week. An intern from one of the local colleges has recently begun to redevelop the organization's website. RISE staff has proven very resourceful over the years with stretching the financial and resource donations of the community. What always seems most in demand is volunteers who donate their time and compassion to this community. At its core, this is a service that is fueled by human interaction, by listening, by teaching, and by learning. There are no more efficient methods, and there are no shortcuts. The enduring need is, and always will be, for more people to take up the cause. It seems clear from today's headlines that refugees will continue to grow in number. They will come to America from the far reaches of the globe, fleeing conflict and devastation. The community that RISE must be more intentional about building is the community of volunteers that are prepared to receive these weary people. RISE must tell its story, the best version of the American story, of people finding a place where they may thrive and grow, where they and their children can find happiness. Building this community of volunteers requires clearly enunciated goals, both long and short term, for increasing their number, for nurturing their involvement, and deepening their engagement. Like any modern marketing campaign, this will begin by first knowing the audience, by dividing it into distinct personas, and by approaching them according to their needs, their strengths, and their interests. Many of these groups are readily defined by the ways in which they have already engaged. Each has its own rhythms of availability, its own cohesion as part of a sustained, supporting community. Each of these groups is best reached by defined means and mediums of communications. Many formal groups will have leaders who can serve effectively as advocates for RISE, leveraging their role as organizers of their own communities. But additional research is required to begin mapping an approach that anticipates volunteer needs. For each group, the ask must be specifically developed so that it resonates with their core values. This approach must also be aware of the limitations each group will have. Committing to a limited number of key messages will help RISE ensure that all of its communications are rooted in the essence of its mission and the values of the community it needs to speak to. Every status update on social media, every brochure, and every post on its blog should express one of these key messages. In this disciplined communication, the target audience will learn to recognize RISE according to its explicit values. As RISE continuously reveals its story, it should consistently provide a call to action. Its communication will inform, it can entertain, and it can resonate with its audience. But in any and all of these, it must always be mobilizing. As constantly as it opens its doors to refugees, it must also open its doors to volunteers. It must challenge them, inspire them, and it must give them a number to call. On this slide are a few suggested tactics that should prove a good starting point. But tactics must constantly evolve. They must be creative, they must come from knowledge of what appeals to the local community, and they must recognize opportunities as they arise. There are several potential deadlines in the coming months that could be leveraged as opportunities to challenge the staff and to spur the community. But the need is constant enough that new deadlines should be established with regularity and with frequency. Quarterly goals would be helpful. Annual reviews would provide key measurements for gauging success. Measurement is critical because tactics and strategies must either produce the outcome required or they must be adapted. Margaret Mead has long been an inspiration to organizations like RISE. And the fact is that every morning it opens its doors, RISE does change the world. Or perhaps more accurately, it provides a place where a small group of people can change the world. In the end, this is a story about people. And it's a story that Albany needs to hear.